Hi YouTube, we're here with the Frankenstein ASK-21, and you're probably thinking to yourself, boy, that is really ugly, Brian, and you would be correct. But what's more ugly about a beautiful plane is that it can't fly. And so unless you have an awesome slope, which we don't really have good slopes around here, that it's allowed to fly on, we have a dam within a few miles of our house that we could fly off, but the park rangers won't let me do that. So you can see this prop here. This is off of a Sport Cub S. This is not the final project here. This is just, I want to show you the progress. So far, one other thing I added, I noticed this thing is super delicate, so I added a reinforcement that goes down and plugs, it actually shoots into the fuse. And also I taped all the leading edges with as thin a tape as I could get that was still strong, and then I cut it in half on this, and I taped down here, and then I also glued this thing in so that the angle of incidence would be the same, and it's really improved the performance of this plane, even though it's not enough to fly. The other thing is I took this is plastic on the top, and then it's foam on the bottom. I took and ran thin CA down the crack, and I kickered it, and so now this is a lot more sturdy. I also noticed that one of these had been lost either in flight, it's a carbon fiber rod, or it was just simply broken when I landed, or I didn't get it when I got the plane. I got this used. One of the magnets also popped out when I was flying, I think, because I'm pretty sure all the magnets were all there. So I had to take and cut one down. I had some Hobby King 10 by 10 millimeter magnets, and I trimmed it down, heated it up just a touch, and stuck it in there. It worked okay. So anyway, we're back to square one, right? Tried doing the slope soaring. You guys saw it yesterday. Epic failure. Just not enough wind, and I concluded that with the right amount of wind in the environment that we had to work with, you'd end up destroying this thing in probably like 1 or 2 outings, and it's just, I don't want to destroy this thing. So anyway, this is going to be a lower wind flight performer, or it's going to be the correct amount of wind, and then it's going to slope soar. I don't think this, I mean, you're not going to be able to get up that high in thermal with this. You probably could. It's not inconceivable, but it's like, you're going to have some really good eyes to see this thing by the time you get into a real thermal. And the thermals that are close to the ground are not very wide, so you're going to have a hard time finding them. At any rate, I wanted to show you my progress. I've got this little piece of foam that's here on top of the gearbox. That just holds up the canopy so that the gears don't rub. This is temporary where it's mounted. I just don't want to cut this in until I get my UMX Radian folding prop. Once I get that, then I'm going to know exactly how deep to put this. This is just held on with a little drip of hot glue. And then this gearbox comes out of a Sport Cub S UMX, ultra micro. And you can see this is actually a motor from a Sport Cub S. It's got a problem where one of the points, as it spins around, it won't start. So it's kind of nice that we have this prop because it'll keep spinning as I fly. And I just wanted to demonstrate to you that it can fly. I pulled out the tow release servo and linkage, but I did not pull out the tow release plastic here. You'll notice I also cut off the nose, just the tip of it. I kept it, I cut it with a really sharp blade so I can actually stick that back in there if I decided I needed more length. But the whole idea is that I need somewhere for the gearbox to protrude, and then I'm going to have a larger nose cone that's going to hopefully make a nice transition, and I'll probably have to put a little bit of foam back in here. So it should be no problem, and then really the only detail I've got to do is maybe put like a blue mark. So then this will seat down tightly. And my rationale behind pulling out that servo was, first of all, to offset some of the added weight from the gearbox in the motor, which incidentally is very close to the same weight as an ultra micro servo, a linear long throw servo. So I've got the 1S connector here, and I'm just going to demonstrate how this works. I still have my timer set to 25 minutes. I'm going to show you where to plug in. This is a brush motor, and you can see I've plugged the negative into the far terminal on this 3-pin plug. If you plug it in one set over, you won't blow anything up, but what's going to happen is the motor will run full out all the time, or it'll run not at all, because you're going to go ground compared to 12 volts. So the signal line is the one in the middle, I believe. But either way, the point is this: I now have a throttle channel. It works fine. It has enough power to fly. It's not crazy. It's not going to be a, power thing. Let's just give you guys a chance to see this. Of course, you can go 2S. You can run a whole nother brick, just run the motor off of it, bind it to your same radio system, and then you can go ahead and fly that plane. You have to hold this thing still for a while. Oh no, it's working this time. It's kind of hard to tell without that what am I trying to say? The toe release, because the toe release is on the flap channel, so it would always move every time it would initiate. Now, the other thing nice about not having that toe motor or toe release is that you can slide this 1S pack back there. And the other thing I'm hoping for, and I haven't tested it yet, but my 300 milliamp hour will fit in there. And you'll notice I have some red and black wire there. That's just to lengthen the lead that was on this little Sport Cub motor. It was just shy of what I needed. And I mean, I'm talking about like probably 5 centimeters or 5 millimeters. It was just almost there. So I added a 1S male and female connector within the portion that I cut. And so that gives me the chance to be able to unplug this. So going to the hobby shop and I'm gonna get that folding prop. But I wanted to show you how it performed on a regular non-folding prop. And you'll understand why you need a folding prop for this type of plane, because this is gonna create a ton of drag. Under load, when you're running the motor at full out, this thing flies. You shut it off, it slows down. It's like flaps, which I actually kind of like usually. But the idea is on this plane, you need to be able to shut the throttle off and fly, gain speed, do loops, whatever it is you're gonna do. But if you have a prop like this, it's not gonna be a very enjoyable experience. But what it will do is it will vet the gearbox, it will vet the motor, and it will vet the time that you can get out of 150 milliamp 1S LiPo. 25C to be exact. This is the E-Flight LiPo. I'm also going to be flying it on 300 milliamp hour Nanotech 300 milliamp hour 1S 35C. So it's a little bit higher C rating, about 30% higher C rating. And the idea is that worst case scenario, I can put this up in the canopy like we did in that one video. So worst case scenario, if this thing gets pulled up, we'll be able to put it up here. And we can also put it in the back seat if we need to try to balance and offset some of that weight. We're still gonna be forward of the center of gravity, but we're gonna be taking a battery that had been here, moving it back, and so it should CG out about the same. And by the way, this thing CGs out great. There's your 18 millimeter mark, and we're just shy of that. So real happy with the way this works. We're gonna get you guys a quick video of how it flies on the 1S standard 1S 150 milliamp hour 25C pack, which is what you're gonna get with this type of configuration. If you got this plane as a bind and fly, it would come with this and a charger and the manual and some toe releases and a high toe system where you've got a rubber band and a string. If you got this as bind and fly basic, it wouldn't come with a battery and stuff, but they never sold this as a bind and fly basic. Bind and fly basic was a new creation that was super stupid, because then you buy a plane and you immediately have to go and get batteries that you can't find because they're out of stock for some stupid reason. So we're gonna go outside without further ado. Okay guys, we got a little bit of wind coming from that direction, and power test, rudder, elevator, ailerons. Okay. With the wind. And now you guys get to see it fly more than you did all the way through that whole video yesterday. And you can see it flies pretty good. That's at full throttle. So it flies like a glider. It looks like a glider, but it's got that silly prop on there. So you can't retract the prop. So what I'm going to do is I'll bring it up to a reasonable height, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut the power. That's again, this is full power right here. Okay, cutting power. Watch what happens. You can't hardly even glide the thing because it's just, I'm at full throttle again. With this little teeny bit of wind, she just doesn't want to fly. Okay, so out of the power. See how fast she comes down? That's why we're doing a folding prop, everybody. You want to go ahead and pause it? We'll give them a little more footage. Whoa, that was nice and fast, man. Yep. right, so let's just go ahead and do a following
Okay.
closing here. So guys, in closing, folding prop, really necessary if you're going with the crappy brushless motor configuration. Another thing to keep in mind is that this motor is bad. I took it out of a Sport Cub S, and that's not a real powerful configuration. If I get the UMX Radian motor, it should be a little bit more power. I think it's got a couple more coils on it. So I'm hoping that's what I'm gonna grab. And incidentally, the gearbox for the Sport Cub S and the UMX Radian, they have the same gear count, the tooth count, and the same size for the motor, but the motor's, I think, a little bit longer, just a touch longer on the Radian. So my hope is that will actually pull this plane along a little bit better, and there's a little bit more aggressive pitch and size on the prop, because this is only 130 by 70. Ooh, that's bad. That's exactly what it is. So hopefully the more powerful motor will get this thing around a little better. But the idea is you can cut the power and then you can glide. You can use the weight of the plane, you can get some inertia, and then you can do your loops, you can do your rolls, whatever it is you're trying to do. But the critical, and this is the critical thing, is I can go to a hill if the wind conditions are perfect, and I can throw it off and I can fly it and slope sort, which is ultimately what I want to do with this plane. But I don't want it to sit on my shelf for 364 days of the year, because what's the point of having it? I would just rather not have it. I'll just watch a YouTube video then. So anyway, I just wanted to show you my plan. Here in a few hours, we're gonna have the rest of this build video to show you how we transitioned it from this to that.